Hey there, have you ever wondered why some people can't imagine leaving the busy streets of a big city while others dream about waking up to birds singing in a quiet village? Today we're diving into that exact topic. Welcome back to English Speak Lab, the place where you learn real English step by step in a fun and simple way. If this is your first time here, hello and welcome. I'm so glad you found us. Today's topic is talking about city life and country life in English. We'll learn key vocabulary, useful expressions, natural dialogues, and grammar you can use to describe both lifestyles like a native speaker. No boring lists, just real conversations you can actually use. Let's jump right in. Let's start with something simple. Imagine you're talking to a friend and they ask you, "Do you like living in the city, or would you rather live in the countryside?" This is a very common question in English conversations, especially when people are getting to know each other. It's also a great topic for job interviews, casual chats, and even English exams. So learning how to talk about it fluently is really useful. First, let's build our vocabulary about city life. When we talk about cities, we often use words like skyscraper, traffic, public transportation, crowded, pollution, nightlife, convenience, and opportunities. Let's go through each one with an example sentence, so you can hear how it sounds in real speech. A skyscraper is a very tall building. For example, New York is famous for its skyscrapers. Notice how the sentence flows naturally. Try saying it out loud with me. New York is famous for its skyscrapers. Traffic refers to all the cars, buses, and vehicles moving on the road. We often say heavy traffic or traffic jam. For example, I hate driving during rush hour because the traffic is terrible. Say it with me. I hate driving during rush hour because the traffic is terrible. Public transportation includes buses, trains, subways, and trams. For example, in big cities, public transportation is usually fast and convenient. Try it. In big cities, public transportation is usually fast and convenient. Crowded means full of people. For example, the subway is always crowded during the morning commute. Let's repeat. The subway is always crowded during the morning commute. Pollution refers to dirty air or water, often caused by cars and factories. For example, air pollution is a big problem in many major cities. Say it with me. Air pollution is a big problem in many major cities. Nightlife means the entertainment and social activities available at night, like bars, clubs, and restaurants. For example, she loves the city because of its exciting nightlife. Repeat after me. She loves the city because of its exciting nightlife. Convenience means something is easy and quick to do. For example, one advantage of city life is the convenience of having everything nearby. Try saying that. Opportunities refers to chances for jobs, education, or personal growth. For example, many young people move to the city for better job opportunities. Let's say it together. Many young people move to the city for better job opportunities. Great job so far. Now let's move to vocabulary about country life. Words we often use include peaceful, fresh air, farmland, nature, community, slow-paced, quiet, and wildlife. Peaceful means calm and quiet, without stress. For example, life in the countryside is much more peaceful than in the city. Try it. Life in the countryside is much more peaceful than in the city. Fresh air refers to clean, natural air, usually without pollution. For example, I love breathing fresh air every morning when I wake up in the village. Say it with me. Farmland is land used for growing crops or raising animals. For example, my grandparents own a large piece of farmland. Repeat that sentence. Nature refers to the natural environment, like forests, mountains, rivers, and animals. For example, living close to nature helps reduce stress. Try saying it. Community means a group of people who live in the same area and often know each other well. For example, in small towns, the community is usually very close and supportive. Let's repeat. Slow-paced means life moves slowly, without rushing. For example, country life is more slow-paced compared to the fast rhythm of the city. Say it out loud. Quiet means calm, with little noise. For example, at night the countryside is completely quiet. Repeat that. Wildlife refers to wild animals living in their natural environment. For example, you can often see wildlife like deer and rabbits near the farm. Try it once more. Now that we have some solid vocabulary, let's learn how to express opinions and preferences naturally. This is really important, because in real conversations, people don't just list facts, they share what they think and feel. To express preference, we can use phrases like I prefer, I would rather, in my opinion, personally I think, and what I like most about. Let's practice each one with examples. I prefer living in the city because there are more job opportunities. Try saying that sentence with confidence. I would rather live in the countryside because I love peace and quiet. Repeat that. In my opinion, city life is more exciting, but it can also be stressful. Say it with me. Personally, I think country life is better for raising a family. Try that sentence. What I like most about the city is the convenience of having everything close by. Repeat that phrase. Notice how these phrases give your English a more natural and personal touch. Instead of just saying facts, you're sharing your own perspective, which makes your speaking sound much more fluent and authentic. Now let's look at a short dialogue between two friends, Sarah and Mike, who are discussing where they'd like to live. Listen carefully, then try to repeat the lines with the same rhythm and intonation. Sarah says, Mike, if you could live anywhere, would you choose the city or the countryside? Mike replies, honestly, I think I'd choose the countryside. I grew up in a big city and honestly, the noise and traffic really stressed me out. Sarah says, really? I actually love the city. I like having restaurants, shops, and entertainment all within walking distance. Mike replies, that's true, the convenience is amazing. But for me, waking up to fresh air and quiet mornings is worth more than convenience. Sarah says, I understand that, but don't you miss having more job opportunities? The countryside can be quite limited in that sense. Mike replies, that's a fair point. I guess it depends on what someone values most, career opportunities or peace of mind. Sarah says, exactly. It's all about personal priorities. Great dialogue, right? Notice how natural the conversation sounds. They're not just listing vocabulary, they're having a real discussion, agreeing and disagreeing politely. This is exactly how native speakers talk about this topic in real life. Let's break down some useful expressions from that dialogue. If you could live anywhere is a great way to start a hypothetical question. Honestly is used to show sincerity. That's a fair point is a polite way to agree with someone's argument, even if you have a different opinion. It depends on is used when there's no single correct answer, and it depends on personal circumstances. Now, let's move to comparatives and superlatives, since this grammar point is essential when comparing city life and country life. When comparing two things, we use comparative adjectives, usually ending in "er" for short words, or using "more" for longer words. For example, the city is busier than the countryside. Try saying that. Another example, the countryside is more peaceful than the city. Repeat that sentence. When comparing more than two things, or describing something as the highest degree, we use superlatives, usually ending in "est" or using "most." For example, this is the busiest city I've ever visited. Try that sentence. Another example, that was the most peaceful vacation I've ever had. Repeat that. Let's practice a few more comparative sentences together. City life is more expensive than country life. Say it with me. Country life is quieter than city life. Try that. The city has more opportunities than the countryside. Repeat that sentence. The countryside is greener than the city. Say it out loud. Now let's talk about some common idioms and expressions related to this topic, because idioms make your English sound much more natural and native-like. The first idiom is concrete jungle. This refers to a big city full of tall buildings, often with a negative connotation of being cold or impersonal. For example, after years in the concrete jungle, she finally moved to a small town. Try saying that. Another idiom is the rat race. This describes the stressful, competitive lifestyle often associated with city life and careers. For example, he quit his job in the city because he was tired of the rat race. Repeat that sentence. Another useful expression is middle of nowhere. This describes a very remote, isolated place, often in the countryside. For example, their farmhouse is in the middle of nowhere, with no neighbors for miles. Try that. Another idiom is city slicker. This describes someone who is used to city life and might seem out of place in a rural area. For example, the local farmers laughed at the city slicker who didn't know how to milk a cow. Say it with me. And one more expression, a breath of fresh air. This can be used literally, but it's also used metaphorically to describe something refreshing or different. For example, moving to the countryside was a breath of fresh air after years of city stress. Try that sentence. These idioms are great tools to make your English sound more advanced and natural, especially in casual conversations. Now let's talk about pronunciation, since correct pronunciation really helps you sound more fluent and confident. Let's focus on word stress in some key vocabulary from today's lesson. The word countryside has stress on the first syllable, sintri, eon tri-side. Try saying it slowly, then naturally. The word opportunity has stress on the third syllable, op por unity. Practice that rhythm. The word convenience has stress on the second syllable, convenience. Say it a few times. The word pollution has stress on the second syllable, pollution. Try that. Getting the stress right really helps native speakers understand you more easily, and it also makes your speech sound smoother and more natural. Now, let's practice linking sounds, which is when words connect smoothly in fast speech. For example, a lot of is often pronounced like a lotta. Try saying, there's a lot of traffic in the city today. Another example, kind of often sounds like kinda. Try saying, the countryside is kinda quiet compared to downtown. These small pronunciation habits will make you sound much more natural, just like a native speaker. Now let's discuss the advantages and disadvantages of both lifestyles in more detail. Since this is a common topic in debates, essays, and casual conversations, let's start with the advantages of city life. Cities usually offer more job opportunities, better access to education, a wide variety of restaurants and entertainment, excellent public transportation, and diverse cultural experiences. For example, one major advantage of city life is access to world-class universities and career opportunities. However, city life also comes with disadvantages. These include higher cost of living, traffic congestion, noise pollution, crowded spaces, and sometimes a faster, more stressful pace of life. For example, a big disadvantage of living in the city is the high cost of rent and daily expenses. Now let's look at the advantages of country life. These include cleaner air, a peaceful environment, lower cost of living, closer community relationships, and more space for activities like gardening or farming. For example, one benefit of country life is the strong sense of community among neighbors. On the other hand, country life also has some disadvantages, such as limited job opportunities, less access to entertainment and shopping, longer travel times to cities, and sometimes limited healthcare facilities. For example, a drawback of living in a rural area is the lack of nearby hospitals or specialists. By understanding both sides, you can build balanced opinions and express them clearly in English, which is a valuable skill, especially for debates, presentations, or casual discussions. Now, let's read a short story to put everything we've learned into context. Listen carefully and try to notice the vocabulary and expressions we've studied today. Emma grew up in a small village surrounded by green fields and quiet roads. Every morning she woke up to the sound of birds singing outside her window. Life was slow-paced, peaceful, and simple. But as she grew older, she started dreaming of something different. She wanted excitement, opportunities, and a taste of city life. At 22, Emma moved to the big city to start her career. At first, everything felt overwhelming. The traffic was heavy, the streets were crowded, and the noise never seemed to stop. She missed the fresh air and the calmness of her village. But little by little, she began to appreciate the convenience of city life. She could walk to work, order food anytime, and explore new restaurants every weekend. The nightlife was exciting, and she met people from all over the world. However, after a few years, Emma began to feel exhausted. She was caught in what many people call the rat race, working long hours just to keep up with the fast pace of city life. She missed the community feeling from her village, where everyone knew each other and helped one another. One weekend, she decided to visit her family back home. As soon as she arrived, she felt a wave of relief. The fresh air, the quiet nights, and the friendly faces reminded her of what she had been missing. She realized that both lifestyles had their own beauty, but she needed to find a balance that worked for her. Eventually, Emma decided to work remotely and split her time between the city and the countryside. She kept her job opportunities from the city while enjoying the peace and community of her village. For her, it wasn't about choosing one over the other, but about finding what truly made her happy. This story shows us that both city life and country life have unique advantages, and the right choice often depends on our personal values, priorities, and stage of life. Now, let's review the key vocabulary and expressions we learned today by using them in new sentences. This will help reinforce what you've learned and improve your memory retention. Skyscraper. Example, from my apartment window, I can see several skyscrapers downtown. Traffic. Example, we left early to avoid heavy traffic on the highway. Public transportation. Example, I usually take public transportation to save money on gas. Crowded. Example, the mall gets really crowded on weekends. Pollution. Example, the government is working on reducing pollution levels in the city. Nightlife. Example, this city is famous for its vibrant nightlife. Convenience. Example, living near the office adds a lot of convenience to my daily routine. Opportunities. Example, big cities usually offer more career opportunities. Peaceful. Example, I love spending weekends in a peaceful cabin in the mountains. Fresh air. Example, after being sick, some fresh air really helped me feel better. Farmland. Example, most of the farmland in this region grows corn and wheat. Nature. Example, spending time in nature can reduce anxiety and stress. Community. Example, our community organizes a festival every summer. Slow-paced. Example, I enjoy the slow-paced lifestyle of small towns. Quiet. Example, the library is always quiet, which makes it perfect for studying. Wildlife. Example, the national park is home to diverse wildlife, including bears and eagles. Fantastic! You've just reviewed 12 important vocabulary words in context. Repetition like this really helps you remember new words long-term, so make sure to use them in your own sentences too. Now let's practice some discussion questions. I want you to pause the video after each question and try to answer out loud in English. This is one of the best ways to improve your speaking skills. Question 1. Do you prefer living in the city or the countryside? Why? Question 2. What do you think is the biggest advantage of city life? Question 3. What do you think is the biggest advantage of country life? Question 4. Would you rather work in a stressful job in the city with a higher salary, or a relaxed job in the countryside with a lower salary? Question 5. Do you think it's possible to enjoy the benefits of both city and country life? How? Take your time to think about these questions and try answering them using the vocabulary and expressions we studied today. If you want extra practice, write your answers in the comments below. I'd love to read your thoughts and reply to some of you. Let's also talk about a few more natural expressions you can use to sound more fluent when discussing this topic. It's a trade-off, means that choosing one option means giving up something else. For example, living in the city is a trade-off between convenience and peace and quiet. Try saying that sentence. Another useful phrase is, there's no place like home, which means someone loves their home more than anywhere else. For example, after traveling for months, she realized there's no place like home. Repeat that. Another phrase is get away from it all, which means to escape from stress or busy city life. For example, we rented a cabin in the mountains to get away from it all for the weekend. Try saying that sentence. One more useful expression is settle down, which means to start living a stable, quiet life, often in one place. For example, after years of traveling, they decided to settle down in a small countryside town. Repeat that sentence. These expressions will help you sound much more natural, whether you're chatting casually with friends or writing an essay about lifestyle preferences. Now, let's do one more listening and speaking exercise. I'll read a short paragraph, and I want you to repeat it sentence by sentence, focusing on rhythm, pronunciation, and intonation. Living in the city has its perks. There's always something to do, whether it's grabbing coffee with friends or checking out a new restaurant. But sometimes, the noise and crowds can be overwhelming. On the other hand, country life offers peace and quiet, but sometimes it can feel a bit isolated. Ultimately, the best choice depends on what makes you happy. Great job repeating that. Practicing with real paragraphs like this helps train your mouth and ear to get used to natural English rhythm and flow. Before we wrap up, let's quickly summarize everything we covered today. We learned key vocabulary related to city life, including words like skyscraper, traffic, and convenience. We also learned country life vocabulary such as peaceful, fresh air, and community. We practiced expressing personal opinions and preferences using phrases like I prefer and in my opinion. We listened to a natural dialogue between two friends discussing where they'd like to live. We reviewed comparatives and superlatives to compare both lifestyles. We explored useful idioms like concrete jungle, the rat race, and a breath of fresh air. We practiced pronunciation and word stress. We discussed the advantages and disadvantages of both city and country life. We read a short story that connected all these ideas together. And finally, we practiced discussion questions and a listening exercise to reinforce everything we've learned. That's a lot of valuable content, and if you followed along and practiced speaking out loud, you're already improving your English fluency, vocabulary, and confidence. Remember, learning English isn't just about memorizing words, it's about using them in real conversations, just like we did today. So try to use some of these expressions this week, whether you're chatting with friends, writing in a journal, or even talking to yourself in English, which is actually a great practice technique. If you enjoyed this lesson, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps our channel grow and reach more English learners like you. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to English Speak Lab because we upload new lessons regularly to help you improve your English step by step. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me, do you prefer city life or country life? Use some of the vocabulary and expressions we learned today to share your opinion. I'll try to reply to as many comments as possible, and it's a great way to practice your writing skills too. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Your dedication to learning English is truly inspiring, and I'm excited to continue this journey with you in future lessons. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and remember, every small step brings you closer to fluency. See you in the next video, and until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep speaking English with confidence. Goodbye for now, and take care.